I have the pleasure of inviting my friend, Dr. Dharam. मैं नीरव ने आप नीरव पास. He is in the room only. So I have the pleasure of inviting to chair this panel on he for she, Dr. Dhara Majetia, Dr. Jeel Patel, and my dear friend dietitian Vaishnavi Rawal. So the idea is that not just women need to talk about women health, we need the male participants to equally take care of the women health subjects. So with that, I request the chairpersons to invite our moderator.
I would invite to moderator of this session, Dr. Vidisha Patel. She is a consultant diabetologist at the Vardhan Diabetes Clinic, Gurta, Ahmedabad. Over to you, ma'am.
You can introduce chairpersons.
I would like to invite Dr. Asha Shah. She is a senior consultant at Zydus Hospital, ex-PG director and additional dean at a Vijay Medical College, ex-HOD medicine and professor at a Vijay Medical College, ex-nodal officer, recipient professor at the Epicon 2018.
Again, I will also like to invite Dr. Rucha Mehta, practicing as a clinical endocrinologist, a director of cardiometabolic department at Apollo, chair of research ethics committee at Mulji Bhai Patel University, executive committee member for All India Association for Advancing Research in Obesity, RSSDI working committee member for writing the obesity guidelines for the RSSDI consensus panel, international consensus guideline writing group for nutrition, insulin resistance, obesity and PCOS, and she has many publications under her head. Dr. Rucha? Yeah.
I would like to invite Dr. Jaina Shah. She is practicing in the Krishna Hospital, Nadiad. She did her MBBS from NHL Medical College in 1984 and doing her graduation from the St. KM School of Post Graduation.
I will invite Dr. Urvi Parekh, practicing as diabetologist and endocrinologist at Ahmedabad since more than 15 years, past MD medicine, trained under senior endocrinologist Dr. Premal Thakur sir and endocrine and clinic of Gujarat Cancer and Research Institute, worked as a visiting endocrinologist in same institute for more than 5 years, attend many national conference as faculty, serve publication in national journals. Welcome, ma'am.
Also, I would like to invite on the stage Dr. Komal Shah. She is an associate professor and NSD art leader. Okay, she has a publication about for the 10th research publication. Her interests are in research papers addressing early identification and management of metabolic diseases, developing risk stratification models for primary care, and developing cohorts for understanding disease epidemiology. Again, she is an academic editor and a member at Global Burden of Disease Collaboration Network, American Heart Association, European Association of Prevention and Cardiology, and Royal Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene.
So there could not be a stronger panel to talk on women health, including epidemiologist, endocrinologist, a gynecologist, and the senior most physicians of the city. So, and you know, upcoming budding people who are chairing the session with such a immensely powerful moderator today. So what I want to tell everybody is that when we generally talk about women health, we focus only on the reproductive phase of her life. We need to focus on the varied different troubles that a female goes through, and that is what Vidisha is going to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Dhruvi. Thank you, chairpersons, and I welcome all the panelists. So we'll start with Asha ma'am. How do gender roles, income inequality, and caregiving responsibilities affect women's ability to manage diabetes?
They affect the woman's entire diabetes management, starting from access to the treatment, to the management and the outcome. As we can see, there are various things which are responsible for it. One is particularly this is more important in low-income countries like India. We start from the diet or nutrition. Here, woman is mostly considered like, you know, the epitome, like she is the main person in the family, but she will eat the last
Her
after
needs are
feeding
neglected.
everybody, and she will probably, you know, eat less nutritious food. Also, sometimes skip the meal. So that will all lead to the adverse circumstances for her. Secondly, she is not a primary earner. So she will have to be dependent or otherwise for management of like things like sugar, the blood sugar monitoring strips, or the medicines itself, or the nutritious food. Everything is for her it's dependent, and there will be less priority. We have seen throughout, like even when I was in civil for the HIV management, if both the partners were affected, the male would get the treatment, female would get it later. So those type of differences are there, and here also it would be like that. Then third is, women also have a caregiver responsibility. She is responsible for caring for the whole family. So in that way, like, you know, she will think of the priorities like for children care, for the elderly care, and that way she will think of her priority the least. So that also is an important factor. Plus, there is less autonomy for the females, you know, in the overall picture. They are dependent on somebody to take them to the hospital. In the rural area, they need permission to go and visit the hospital. Plus, there are like, you know, less knowledge about asking the question. They don't, even the symptoms also they would ignore because they are not aware what the problem is. So all these are very, very important factors for the women in India particularly, or lower socioeconomic group. Not in the, even the caregiving part. You know, what can I say? Like even we educated people, women, we also have to care for family, for home and the job. So that is more for the lower socioeconomic group. So what we can do is, at the healthcare level, we can educate the female for diabetes along with the family members, so that their cooperation is there. And for outreach, for the social barrier also should be adjusted. At the government level, they should be providing the treatment at the lower cost, like the strips and all, and the medication also. And they should also, like, you know, empower the woman for more of the issues. So if we can do all that, maybe something can be done. Otherwise, this is a major issue for management of diabetes in women, is a problem compared to men. And they are also not very well controlled, and they are not screened for complications also. So outcome also is worse than men.
Very true, ma'am. Now my question is to Rucha, ma'am. How do conditions like PCOS, which increase diabetic risk, get overlooked in routine care for women?
So I think that's a very good question, and a great segue from what Dr. Asha ma'am just said is that diabetes can affect women at any age, and we need to start in the womb. We were just talking in the earlier session about the thin fat baby. And now we also know that a pregnant woman, she has the chance to impact what is happening inside the womb, and this insulin resistance begins very early. So why does PCOS, which is the reason I'm of course alluding to this, it's a precursor to diabetes or pre-diabetes, and we know the underlying pathophysiology is now insulin resistance. Why does it get overlooked? Simply put, maybe women don't want to complain that they don't have periods or their periods are irregular because it might be a social stigma later on. So there is a patient perspective and there is a physician perspective. Now the patient might complain, but the physician in his busy practice doesn't really want to deal with that complaint. He will probably say, okay, I'm referring you to a gynecologist, and we all know when is that patient going to make the time to go see another physician. So lack of knowledge on the part of the patient that this can lead to so many future complications. She thinks, chalo acha hai, for 2 months I will not get a period. It's better than having a period every month. But not realizing that this is going to in the future cause diabetes, fatty liver, heart disease, impact her children, impact pregnancy outcomes. So she never realized this. And then, of course, the physician similarly may not realize what he has missed. He has missed a golden opportunity to educate this woman, do something much more for her. So certainly lack of awareness is a big thing. We can work upon this with programs like this, maybe having online webinars, having group support meetings, all of that would become important. Secondly, now we all know that PCOS or anything in our society particularly is stigmatized upon because it can impact fertility. So even if they do realize they have something, it's all kept hush-hush under the covers. And instead of one woman teaching 10 others, we again lose that chance to propagate in the community. So I think these are so many issues rooted deep into our system, into our cultural system, that we need to work upon. And of course, Asha ma'am has worked so much at the public health community level. She has definitely run programs, I'm sure. Like when I was back in the US also, we had, Michelle Obama had started a program for young girls that they need to be teaching. The seniors teach the juniors what to eat. The seniors teach the juniors about the menstrual health. So I think all of this is important even for us, and we are a growing country and we should be incorporating more and more of this.
Right. Ma'am wants to end.
I'll give you one comment. Actually, the FOXI, Federation of Gynecological Society of India, is very much active for the PCOS. And we have a PCOS society. And every monthly there are webinars, and most of the gynecologists of all the societies are monthly going to the schools and teaching the adolescents. And nowadays in my private practice, every day I'm getting 2 to 3 patients of PCOS. They are worried about PCOS. They have so much searched about PCOS, and they are coming with the parents. So I'm happy that they are now aware of it. And as we are knowing and we are taking care of them at PCOS level, so they will not progress to GDM, and future fertility may not be affected. So
Yes.
FOXI is taking so many steps to prevent this PCOS.
Yes. So Jaina ma'am, how diabetes affects women during pregnancy? How you see the patients and how they react with the diabetes? You consulting them to then endocrinologist or diabetologist? What do they say about it? And what is your take?
Actually, when I started my practice in 1988, hardly I was getting any patients with type 1 diabetes with pregnancy. But because of the improved diabetic care, nowadays I am getting the patients who are already on insulin and they are coming with the pregnancy. Plus, in second trimester and first, second, third trimester, we are always screening all the patients for their 75% glucose tolerance test guided by our FOXI. So we are detecting the GDM patients in second trimester. The treatment and management depends at which stage patient comes to us. And the treatment starts from the preconception level. Nowadays, many couples are coming for preconception counseling. And if the patients are coming for preconception counseling with type 1 diabetes, definitely the good control of diabetes is mandatory, at least for 3 months before they get pregnant. And those with type 2, they are having the same. They should have good glycemic control before they conceive, because the ova start developing before 3 months of their conception. By chance, if patient comes with pregnancy accidentally, we have to screen them. And because of uncontrolled diabetes, there are so many complications like recurrent pregnancy loss, recurrent vaginal infection, recurrent urinary infection, and recurrent abortion because of neural tube defects, other chromosomal malformation, other cardiovascular defect. So pregnancy loss is very common with the patients who are having diabetes, whether type 1, type 2 or gestational. If it is not properly managed, definitely they have more chances of malformations than other normal patients. Second trimester, usually if patients are managed better in first trimester, second trimester is really very safe with minimum complication, but that is the window of opportunity to detect the pre-diabetic patients. Those patients who are having a GTT normal in first trimester, because of our Indian culture of eating more carbohydrate, they are developing the GDM in second trimester. If it is undetected in second trimester, in third trimester, they may develop macrosomia, hydroamniosis, and that leads to preeclampsia and other so many complications of third trimester like premature delivery, premature rupture of membrane, chorioamnionitis, and that leads to intrapartum complication also. Most of the time nowadays, government has given so many schemes. All the patients are getting ultrasound done in the first trimester, second trimester, and growth scan. So usually macrosomia is always well detected. But if it goes undetected, then during labor, that can lead to shoulder dystocia. Even after delivery, by chance, a gynecologist can manage, then because of overdistended uterus, the deadliest complication of PPH can also occur. And if she goes for cesarean, the chances of complication of surgical delivery is much more than those patients who are not diabetic. Even postpartum complications are also more. The newborn baby who is now habituated to high glucose level, they can develop the hypoglycemia, they can have a respiratory distress because of hydroamniosis, and later on that mother may develop diabetes within few years. And those babies who have been, in previous section Dr. Rucha has said that in intrauterine life, because they have been exposed to more glucose, they have more tendency to develop type 2 diabetes earlier than the other population.
Very nice, very nicely explained, ma'am. Same question I would pass on to Dr. Urvi, ma'am. What are the unique changes you see in women with diabetes during menopause?
Yes, as such, female patients have different hormonal changes in her life than male, and starting from puberty, menarche, then pregnancy, perimenopause, and menopause. As such, menopause leads to anxiety, stress. All the things are increasing due to hormonal changes, and in that, patient who is pre-diabetes or prone to diabetes, they may develop diabetes in that postmenopausal state. So in family also, they cannot understand the situation of a female in a menopausal age group, and that create more problem and more stress to the female, and that lead to diabetes development in this postmenopausal women. Particularly estrogen, which is definitely going to be a protective hormone till menstruating woman. After developing menopause, due to decrease in the estrogen level, all the complications like hypertension, diabetes, heart disease are more common in female after that age. And once the diabetes has developed in a woman and cardiovascular complication has developed, then it is difficult to treat and leads to complication in a female than male. And diabetic female have more chances of developing renal disease than male. So in a postmenopausal woman, development of diabetes is very common due to the stress, due to the lower level of estrogen, and the female if having PCOS or insulin resistance, metabolic disease in their younger age, they also can develop diabetes after this menopause. So it is, and the weight gain again during menopause period is also a risk factor for developing diabetes during menopause.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So
Which I would like to ask you in this manner, because I think in menopause the insulin resistance is increased, And they do have visceral obesity, also development of new visceral obesity.
Yes, so that is true. So we actually have looked at menopausal women, and we are fortunate to have in-body machines. Also from the Women's Health Initiative, which is probably one of the largest trials looking at women in different age groups, they've also studied this, and they've looked at one of the major reasons for the increasing diabetes. In fact, women will be completely normal maybe at 45, and suddenly we see this progressive increase in the prevalence of not just heart disease but diabetes, secondary due to, as Dr. Asha said, an increased visceral fat. So yes, for sure, and that contributes to the insulin resistance.
Even perimenopausal also sometimes we have seen at a very early age nowadays.
Yes,
so that contributes also to the weight gain very soon.
So we are starting to see more and more of also premature ovarian failure or early menopause. But the perimenopause you can even describe, and of course I have madam here. But, from an endocrinologist perspective, how I explain to them is that even after 40, as we know, the egg reserve goes down. So certainly your hormones are on the decline, and women will start experiencing symptoms or difficulty in losing weight, certain metabolic changes. So yes, the menopause, I feel we need to start addressing it early. Just we're trying to prevent everything early. We need to not wait till there's loss of periods, but start sooner in the game so that we are ahead.
Yes, definitely. And now as we were discussing about stress and all, so Dr. Komal, I would like to ask, what role does mental health play in diabetes prevention and management amongst women? Any particularly with the stress and the burdens regularly caregiving women which they are facing?
Okay, so first I think nowadays the studies have coined a new terminology, what they call as stress is the new sugar. So whatever pathway and deleterious effects of sugar that we are seeing has been implicated by stress as well. One of the largest study which became really controversial also, which stated that Indian women are more stressed across the world, globally. That has been like commented, and a lot of people came forward after that how could you label our women like that. But deep downsides we know that there is some truth in that entire theory. So stress, because of multiple reasons, like we all know, we don't have support system, we don't have proper education, we don't have say of women in this entire health system. And that's where a panel like this, initiative like this holds a lot of importance. The voices needs to come forward in order to frame proper programs and advocacy. That has to be representations. So the representation not only starts from this room, but our own families and our own, policy makers. So that's where I would say that if I need to address the solution side of that, two things, maybe two strategies from a public health side. One is acknowledgement, and second is ecosystem. So acknowledgement, we need to come together and say that yes, this happens. This happens. So first, acknowledgement is half solve of the problem, solution of the problem. Second, ecosystem, like how we are sitting together. If we take charge of the things and come forward that yes, our voices needs to be heard in all the committee, be it social destigmatization committee. Like I remember one very simple trial from Rajasthan, what ma'am was telling, nutritional factors. So they just did one intervention that all the women in the house, they'll be eating with all the family members. That was the only trial. And that drastically improved not only women's health indicator, but the children indicator also. So that made them realize that my child is becoming fussy about something, or the child is also realizing that, okay, my need are also my mother's need. So what has to go into my plate also need to go into my mother's plate. Their spouses, they also realize that there has to be a voice in terms of, these are some of the simple public health side interventions that can do wonderful job. We do teach our kids, like we run MPH program, what is equity and what do you mean by health advocacy. So a lot of time our male students, they come forward with all of these interventions. So they design our intervention for menstrual hygiene. So that's how the change will start. So these are tiny seeds, we need to plant it, and then only we can see the change. But of course, stress is the #1 trigger, and the only way out to deal with that is the peer support, acknowledgement, and reducing the stigma that, okay, you have this problem, we need to deal with that. So that could be the only intervention strategy.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Coming to the policies, Urvi ma'am, what policies or funding priorities could shift the landscape towards more gender equal diabetes care? Anything you can suggest?
First of all, our culture is like that female are trained that you have to take care of the whole family. So first and foremost is we have to teach the female that in 24 hours you come out for your own 1 hour. You should have your own 1 hour, and in that 1 hour you take care of yourself. So that is the most important thing. And for that, we have to train our family members also that this is the right of a female that she should have a 1 hour in 24 hours to either go for yoga, exercise, whatever she want to do, and she want to relax in that period. So that will be the stress management in that case. Now for male and female, sometimes it happens that female they are used to forget taking tablets, medicines, and due to the work, atlu karine lay lo, and then they don't take it. So male members are to be taught, and many husbands come to my clinic, they say that I have put alarm in her mobile that you have to take medicine at that time, but still she is not taking. So that is the education required for the family to make equality between male and female. Sometimes it happens in a middle class family also that one female come to me and say that you write it down that I need more protein, I need fruit, which fruit I can eat. So that my family members, they allow me to eat fruit. Otherwise they say that you are diabetic and you are not allowed to take fruits. These are the problems where the equity in the management of male and female is required. Although the society is definitely changing, and it is now taking care of female more, and female also, they are now well educated and they are taking their responsibility.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Asha ma'am, are current diabetes guidelines sufficiently tailored to women's physiology and hormonal differences?
No, unfortunately they are not. They are not tailored to the physiological or hormonal basis. And that is why the complications and everything is more in females. Because unlike males, female go through various stages in life, and these protocols or guidelines are not tailored to that. Like in the puberty, if there is an insulin resistance, there is estrogen surge, there is increase in fat, there is body image issue, menstrual cycle starts, so perimenstrual period, there is a variation in the glycemia. So if the patient is having type 1 diabetes, there are no guidelines for her when she develops a puberty, what is the thing to be done, so there are no guidelines for that. Then secondly, in the pregnancy, we know that there is a lot of work going for preconception care and gestational diabetes, but those guidelines are separate from the general guidelines. They are not integrated. And also we know that diabetes, gestational diabetes will ultimately, more than almost 50% women will develop diabetes. So there is no structured recommendation on how to screen and how to educate these women for the later on life. And for the menopause also, there is the development of, just now we discussed insulin resistance, there is a estrogen lack, and there is increased chances of metabolic complication, cardiovascular complications. So for that also there are no stipulated guideline, no structured recommendation is there. Secondly, the role of or impact of the hormonal changes are also underrepresented. So menstrual cycle irregularity and the hormonal level, then development of like insulin resistance in PCO. So for PCO also, as madam said, now the guidelines probably are there, but usually there is like the patient may go to either the cosmetologist or the gynecologist. They won't realize that this is a symptom like of a major disease. And similarly in the menopause, nowadays some people also go for opt for HRT. So if the guideline for that is lacking. So these are the, and there is also the psychological issue also is not taken into consideration, because women have, and particularly at menopause or certain age, they have more chances of depression and anxiety. So in that period, they would like, as Urvi said, taking the treatment or going for the exercise or going for the routine becomes less. The bone issues are also there, sleep deprivation also is there. So all that also changes. So that for that also I think we should need recommendation. So for all life stages, the recommendation for female starting from puberty, pregnancy, menstrual irregularities, insulin resistance and mental issues, all should be taken care of. So nowadays the awareness is increasing and probably it will come. But at present, there are many things lacking for the female, and the guidelines are, as it is said, the female are not a smaller version of male. They need, their needs are different, the hormones are different, so the guideline should be tailored to them.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So now we just have like 30 seconds, but one minute each. I just want to ask, as a woman, what do you want to say to younger women, younger girls, or in general to everyone? Dil se dil tak, just one thing you want to convey, a message to all. In general. Asha ma'am, from you.
Oh, for women. See, nowadays, I personally see, like in the, particularly in urban population and the middle class or higher middle class, the girls are taking charge of their life.
Yes.
So I would expect the same, probably if it occurs in the rural area or the person with a lesser availability of all the finances, they should also come forward, and we will look forward that day.
Thank you. Urvi ma'am.
Yeah, as I was said in my this panel discussion also, so we should at least all the women, we should tell that 1 hour in 24 hours is required for your health.
Self-care, very true. Jaina ma'am.
As an obstetrician, I will like to say that every girl, she will be a woman and she will be a mother. So she has to take care of herself first to give a better generation next.
Very true. Rucha ma'am.
So I'm seeing a lot of young people in the audience, you know, way younger than all of us here. So I'm going to say that since you understand social media language, all of you are influencers. So don't look at somebody who has 1 million followers. If you have 700, 200, 20, 30, you are influencing them. So that's where I feel if you learned something from this discussion today, is that, you know, our metabolic health starts deteriorating early, and just taking, as you heard, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 1 hour, but the beauty begins at home, and you will be able to influence your circle. And I would want you all to go back today as influencer of Dhruvi's campaign that we are all a part of, She Woman. So please go back and take this message forward.
Yes, thank you. Komal ma'am.
So maybe lastly, be fearless in your own pursuit of happiness. Have purpose, have sense, and this purpose could be anything. It could be health, uplifting other women, and or just uplifting your family, educating the child, or whatever. Fearless in your own pursuit, whatever you are believing, your belief system should be solid enough.
Very true. At the end, I would like to say, Jio Dil Se. That's it. What is most important? Be happy. Okay, thank you so much, and it was a great panel discussion. For the next session, as we all were waiting.
People to invite us.
Oh yeah, for the photo. We all were waiting.
Why don't we have Nimi, Shruti, Smita ma'am as well? Please.